use the Q&A option to type out their questions. Please do include your name as well as your organizational affiliation along with your question. While we highly encourage you to participate, we request you to please be brief in your questions. The audience are requested to avoid comments and not ask multiple questions, and we shall try our best to ensure that all questions are answered within the stipulated time. Our moderator for this session will be Dr. Naeem Salik. Dr. Salik is Executive Director, Strategic Vision Institute, Islamabad. First speaker of this session is Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed is former Director General International Affairs at Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Second speaker of the session is Dr. Ansar Parvez. Dr. Parvez is advisor on nuclear power to National Command Authority of Pakistan. He has also previously served as chairman of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Ms. Ekaterina Poriadina is our third speaker of this session. She is research associate at Center for Energy and Security Studies, Russia. Fourth and last speaker in Pakistani experience is Mr. Anton Khlopkov. He is director at Center for Energy and Security Studies, Russia. I hand over the floor to the moderator, Dr. Naeem Salik. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Akash, and once again, I welcome all the participants who have found time to be with us and participate in this conference. Anton, we have not given you any respite, and we want to make the best use of your presence here, so we'll keep you busy.
I apologize for sitting on the podium for so long.
So this session is about peaceful uses of nuclear energy in sustainable development, Russian and Pakistani experiences. As we all know that Pakistan has a growing nuclear energy program, which is very significant in its energy mix, and it is increasing gradually. At the same time, we all know that Russia is a major player in nuclear energy in terms of technology development and sharing of expertise with other countries and export of nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. And we know that in this, at this particular juncture in history, climate change has become a very critical factor, particularly for countries like Pakistan, which are very vulnerable to this hazard, and we have already seen some of its impact in last few years through a massive flooding in Pakistan. So we are going to discuss different aspects of nuclear energy as to how it can contribute towards sustainable development and also mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. The first question I have is about the Russian and Pakistani experience in the contribution of nuclear energy towards the achievement of sustainable development goals. So I would pose the question first to Mr. Anton as to how is Russia contributing to the achievement of sustainable development goals through the peaceful applications of nuclear energy. And then I will follow it up with the question to the Pakistani participants.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, so we will proceed from the Russian side in the order which we are in the agenda. So Ekaterina will go first, and I will follow. And we also have a few slides, since we have 1 hour, 30 minutes. If you don't mind, we'll also share some slides on the screen to provide more information on Russia's nuclear energy policy, ongoing projects, and Russia's role on the international market.
So we start with Ms. Ekaterina.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see any slides for now, but I just wanted to start with saying that today's topic of the session seemed to me extremely actual and important, since nuclear energy and sustainable development in modern realities are inseparable. So I would be glad to share some of my points and give a general overview of the Russian nuclear energy as of today. And I wanted to start with saying that it is important to know that Russia has a long history in the field of nuclear physics in general. In 1945, the world's first nuclear power plant in Obninsk, it's about 100 kilometers away from Moscow, was put into operation, and today a total in operation in 11 nuclear power plants in Russia. I would also add that onshore and floating small nuclear power plants are an optimal solution for providing steady and clean energy supply to consumers in areas remote from central power grid. And in this context, academic Lomonosov, a floating nuclear power plant, is the northmost nuclear power plant in the world with a small modular reactor in commercial operation. It seems to be a breakthrough for sustainable development of the Arctic, remote areas, and islands all over the world. I would also like to add that State Atomic Energy Corporation Rosatom is a leader in the international nuclear market, including nuclear power plant construction. It is now implementing a large-scale nuclear power plant construction programs both in Russia and abroad, but I would like to focus my attention first of all on Russia. I will just say that Rosatom is currently constructing 3 power units in Russia, in Kursk nuclear power plant 2, Brest-Ot 300, and nuclear power generation accounts for about 20% of the total electricity output in Russia. So the next slide, please. Yes, as we can see in this graph. As for the next part, please, next slide. The energy strategy of the Russian Federation for the period up to 2035 sets the following 2 main objectives in nuclear power sector. First of all, it's improvement of the efficiency of nuclear power, including ensuring the economic competitiveness of nuclear power plants, taking into account their full life cycle. And the second one is development and implementation of a new energy technology in the nuclear energy field, involving parallel operation in thermal and fast neutron reactors in order to ensure a closed nuclear fuel cycle. So here I would also like to note that the energy strategy of Russia is going to be updated by the end of this year, and it will include the period of 2050. And according to the latest statements of Rosatom representatives, there is a common understanding that the plan in nuclear share in electricity generation is going to be approximately 23% by 2030s and 25% by 2045. So going to the next point, yes, Russia is heading for a closed nuclear fuel cycle, which needs MOX fuel, and Russia already has some results in this regard. Belarus nuclear power plant with a fast reactor has been connected to the grid and resumed operation after being fully loaded with MOX fuel. And to my final point, today, nuclear energy contributes to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Please, next slide. Yes, here I will highlight some of the services and products Rosatom makes that contribute to the UN Sustainable Goals. First of all, it's Goal 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, and 17. As we can see, nuclear power is the largest source of low-carbon green energy in Russia. So according to the latest data, all Russian design NPPs helped to prevent greenhouse gas emissions totaling 217 million tons of CO2 in 2022. including more than 109 million tons of CO2 in Russia. In addition to this, the construction of the nuclear power plants contributes to the country's sustainable development goals. In particular, it facilitates offices, with men and women accounting 68% and 32% of the total headcount, respectively. So as we can see now, I would like to give my final point that most of the product areas in nuclear energy in Russia are relevant in some way or another to sustainable development and future. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will follow, if I may, briefly, and Dr. Salik, please interrupt me if I will speak for too long. Again, as I mentioned, I apologize for being on the podium for so long. A few words on Russia's role on the international market, but first I would like to say that I'm a nuclear physicist by my education, so I'm biased. I do believe that nuclear industry is really important. I do believe that almost all of us nowadays feel the impact or results of the climate change. And here, nuclear energy and nuclear industry is one of those which could contribute to prevent further negative, or I would say reduce further negative consequences of the climate change. Having said that, I of course should mention that when we speak about nuclear energy, safety is the first and the most important priority. Already past accidents were mentioned, and of course if there would be another severe accident in the future, of course it can impact on development of nuclear industry. A new opportunity for nuclear energy to be developed internationally, because during the recent years there were not many countries which were constructing nuclear power plants, and Russia was among those who actively built nuclear power plants inside in Russia, but also internationally. May I have slides on the screen? Nowadays, 23 nuclear power reactors are built by Russian nuclear industry in 8 countries abroad. And as you will see from the list, the geographies of countries is quite diverse. Can we have, so the same file which was used by Ekaterina during her presentation. So the next slide, please. You can keep it here. Yeah. Personally expect that it will be further, geography will be further expanded in the upcoming years. What is also important that, for example, Russia is #1 from the point of view how many nuclear power plants are being constructed abroad, but also Russia is #1 supplier of so-called uranium enrichment product, not only to Asian countries. For example, US and Europe still significantly dependent on supply of low enriched uranium from Russia to those countries. US receive about 20% of its consumption of LEU from Russia, Europe even more than that. Of course, the trend is clear, and Fyodor Lukyanov spoke a lot about the trends in relations and economy, and of course Europe will try to substitute Russia on their markets, and not only on their markets in the upcoming years, but it is not so easy to do it quickly. According to Western estimates, it will take at least 5 to 10 years because Russia's role, Russia's presence on their markets, so significant, and there is no spare capacity, free capacities, which could be used, which are based in US or Europe to substitute Russia's products. And you will see that the total portfolio of the Russian nuclear industry globally, I mean, it's impressive. It's more than 200 billions. It's true that some of the projects could be delayed due to sanctions, political pressure, and we know some examples. For example, Finland gave up its project on construction of nuclear power plant shortly after the special military operation in Ukraine started. But this is an exceptional case. As I mentioned, nowadays, 23 nuclear power plants under construction. Next slide, please. I will not focus on each of the slides. Those who would be interested, we will be pleased to share those slides after the meeting. Next slide. So, and this is the list of the projects which are under construction. In number of countries like Iran, like India, like Hungary, like China, those projects are not the first one. Russia already completed a few nuclear power units, and by the way, the second Belarusian nuclear power plant became operational early this year. Next slide, please. And it's not only about nuclear power plants, of course, it's about nuclear fuel delivery, it's about supply of low-enriched uranium, support. So there are many areas where Russia and the Russian nuclear industry provide its assistance and support to other countries. And later, during Q&A, I would like to return, sir, to your question whether Russia and Pakistan could cooperate, because we already raised this point today that there are some legal restrictions, that's true, but from my point of view, it does not mean that two countries cannot cooperate on some related issues which are not prohibited, which are permitted. Next slide, please. And I think this is an important slide when we speak about, for example, sales of uranium products. You see what a significant share of Russia's products goes to Europe and US nowadays, and of course it will be changed for the upcoming years, and it will provide additional opportunities for cooperation of Russia with other countries, including in Asia. Next slide, please. And I would like to pay particular attention on training and education area where we can cooperate, including in the nuclear field, because we do have some, though limited experience when Pakistani experts came to Russia and were trained, including as joint project by Russian nuclear industry and IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. And I think this is one of the areas where we should strengthen our cooperation, because this is absolutely possible. This is absolutely legal. Pakistan is a member of IAEA. So I will stop here. Those who will be interested to receive those slides, they will be available. We'll be pleased to share them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. And now the same question to the Pakistani panelists. Dr. Imtiaz, you would like to go first?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here to participate in it. I would like to raise, I'll beg your indulgence and increase or expand this topic, because nuclear and energy is quite well established and well known, but there are other aspects of nuclear technology that are just neglected, and I would like to point those out to you. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the first is hunger, poverty, health, right? Then energy, then climate change, water resources. All of these are goals of the Sustainable Development Program, and nuclear has a major role to play in all of them. If you look at, for example, hunger or poverty, which is directly related for a country like Pakistan, where 60% of people are engaged in agriculture. Agriculture is a major issue for poverty as well as for food for the country. And nuclear has a major role to play in it. Really, if you start from the soil, it has so much technology to enhance the soil for better utilization. Then you move to the seed, which are planted in that soil. Nuclear is playing a major role in development of new varieties, which can produce even under extreme droughts or, say, temperature rise. And nuclear has a role in assessing how that plant takes the energy from the soil to to grow fruit. Then nuclear has a role in preventing pests and insects from attacking that plant. And then when that final product is ready, nuclear has a role in preserving it. So I was just some of the aspects in agriculture. Then you get into health, which is a major development issue all over the world. Nuclear has a major role. It has a major role in cancer. It has a major role in diagnostic techniques of all types of, not just cancer, but other diseases. The technology has, over the years, developed to develop diagnostic methods for so many other ailments other than cancer. So nuclear has a major role in that. Pakistan now, Atomic Energy Commission has 20 hospitals all over the world for cancer and related. It has 4 agriculture centers. Then, of course, energy is a major issue. Pakistan currently is running 6 nuclear power plants with a capacity of around 3,500 megawatts. And it has, with what we are facing today with droughts and, of course, the floods, we have to decrease the GHG emissions. And that nuclear has a major role to play. And then nuclear can be one of the main use, can be production of desalination of water. Potable water is a major issue in Pakistan. Nuclear has a major role. The Pakistan first, the reactor in Karachi had a desalination plant of 400,000 gallons per day produced from seawater to potable water. I think the new plants in Canop 2 and 3 will also be using desalination as a part of their program. And then if you move on from these issues to other issues like, say, life in sea, nuclear has a major role in assessing the quality of water, the pollution assessment. And then if you move on to climate, you can't do climate modeling unless you know previous climate. And the only way to study previous climate is through nuclear techniques, the stable isotope techniques, the radiative isotope techniques, and there are so many techniques that are required that are based on nuclear technology to study that climate. So if you can reproduce the past climate, we can predict the future climate. So nuclear has a major role to play in all those. So of the 17 challenges that we face according to the Sustainable Development Goals, at least 11 of them in Pakistan are being addressed through the use of nuclear technology. So this is an aspect I think that needs to be highlighted in such forums so that people understand that it's not just nuclear power. Nuclear has a major role to play in all the development goals. Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission is currently, it has 11 major contributions and 3 more. So 14 of the Sustainable Development Goals are being addressed through the use of the nuclear technology. So I think that that is an aspect that should be brought to the common knowledge of the people, so that there is this lobby of nuclear being associated with this, and probably we are also responsible for it. We say non-peaceful use of nuclear technology. That is not a proper term. There are so many uses of nuclear technology. The first thing that comes out of your mind if you say peaceful use is that it has some other use. There are some major use for benefit of civilizations and countries that are available only if you have access to nuclear technology. So those aspects need to be pointed out to the public so that this aversion to the word nuclear that is now common everywhere should be set aside and people realize that how nuclear is contributing into their everyday life. Well, coming back to the, the nuclear power issue, Dr. Ansar Parvez is over here, and I'm sure he has so much insight into the issue that I would rather not transgress and go into that. Thank you very much.
Let me just say that we are lucky to have Dr. Ansar Parvez here because he's one of the foremost experts on relationship between nuclear energy and sustainable development goals. And as Dr. Imtiaz mentioned, he's also has a very long experience and knowledge about nuclear power. So we are going to now listen to Dr. Ansar.
Thank you very much. Actually, Dr. Imtiaz has put together all these things so comprehensively. There's not much I can add, but still I'll try to make a few points. But before I make my own case, the case for Pakistan, I must admire Russia because except for the fact that Korea right now is building the fourth nuclear power plant for UAE, all other nuclear power plants which are being built overseas as of today are by Russia. In so many countries, as Anton has pointed out, but no other country is building any plant outside the country. China right now is not building any nuclear power plant in Pakistan. So, and other than that also, I think that they have a very comprehensive nuclear program, and as a matter of one of the very few countries who are going strong, and they also plan to double their contribution of nuclear to the total energy in the next 10 years, which I think is a very ambitious goal, because this means that they have to double this power, and they also have to make up for the increase in their energy consumption that will take place over the next 10 years. So, well done. I think I must admire my friends sitting on my right and left. And from there, coming back to Pakistan, I think we also have a good story in as far as the nuclear power plants is concerned. We started up our nuclear power program way back in 1965 when the first contract was signed with Canada. And at that time, Pakistan was the, I think, 13th or 15th country in the world which had a nuclear power plant contract and which had started building a nuclear power plant. And although the aid for this nuclear power plant or this vendor support was withdrawn for Canada, but PAEC was able to operate that power plant by itself, and it operated for 50 years before it was shut down. Then we have these 6 Chinese nuclear power plants, 6 at Chashma, 300 megawatt, 325 megawatt each, and 2 at Karachi, about 1100 megawatt, and taken together they produce about 3500 megawatt. But what is more important is that these plants are the best, nuclear power plants are the best operating power plants in the country, operating at a capacity of around 80% per year. The next best is the independent power, IPPs, the independent power producer, which come to around 50%, and then hydro comes, and then the rest of the energy resources. Which means, and if you build a power plant and if it operates at 80% of capacity, then you can say that it will be able to pay back its investment, and it's a good thing. If it does more than 80, then it's even better. So, but the thing that I wanted to make here, and the point that I wanted to be more emphatic about in this whole thing is that nuclear technology, important as it is, and the application that it has in the health sector, in agriculture center, there is still a long way to go. In the first place, if we focused only on the medical side of it, according to WHO, there are about 9.3 or 19.6 million cancer patients per year, new cancer patients. And if you prorate that with Pakistan's population, that is about 600,000 patients every year, new cancer patients. And if you look at the capacity of that we can handle, it's very small to compared with that. And as a matter of fact, there are many countries in the world, in Africa, for example, which do not have any radiotherapy machine. There are many countries in Latin America which still are building, and I think Russia is helping Latin America in a number of ways in this aspect. So as far as the use of radiotherapy for treatment of cancer is concerned, as far as having nuclear technology or nuclear radiation for the treatment of cancer, there is a long way to go for the developing countries, for all the countries, and for developing countries in particular. And as far as the power is concerned, I think nuclear power, which a few years ago used to be about 17% of the total global energy production was nuclear. Right now, it's about 10% of the total energy production, nuclear. And over the last 20 years, the total energy production by nuclear has not increased. It has almost remained steady, which means nuclear really isn't making as big a contribution as it should, despite the fact of this climate change. And I think there are three main reasons for that. And one of them is the large capital cost now of the nuclear. The other is public apprehension about the nuclear radiation. And third is the fear of nuclear accident. And as Anton has also pointed out, that if any major accident happens even today, with right now with this increasing gas prices and increasing and decreasing energy resources, we shall say, nuclear demand is slightly increasing. There are some countries who initially had decided not to build more power plants. Now they're thinking about building more. But any one accident can change this picture entirely, as did Fukushima and as did Chernobyl before that, and as did TMI. You know, when TMI accident took place in United States, more than 40 power plants were under construction. And after TMI, for 25 years, no nuclear power plant was there. No nuclear power plant was there. So what I'm trying to say, and this is also, I think, SDG 16, peace and these kind of things, which actually also deal with safety and security, that is a very, very important factor. And what is also, I think, what need to be done by nuclear industry globally is to tell people that it is not that nuclear accident can never take place. Of course, the nuclear industry should try that it should not take place, but we should tell people it can take place, but we can manage it. We can make sure that people don't get affected. We can make sure that people don't die, and we can also make sure that the effect of radiation that will result from the accident will not be so bad. So these are the things that we have to take care of. And another thing which is happening, which might also have an impact on the growth of nuclear as far as this climate change effect is concerned, that the price of renewable is going down. And renewable is now, and there's a lot of money which is being spent on R&D of renewable, and if they can develop a battery, large size batteries which are economical, it will be very difficult for nuclear to compete. So I think all those countries, whether it's Russia or those countries which already have many plants, for example, France and China and also Pakistan, we have to be very careful about that the cost of nuclear doesn't go beyond, cost of nuclear doesn't go very high, otherwise they will be out of the market as far as the delivery of energy is concerned. And also that the nuclear power plants must operate safely and carefully. Only then they will have a future. But right now, the good thing as far as Pakistan is concerned, that we have our nuclear power plants which are operating very well, and although our total capacity is not more than 8%, but we, as far as energy generation is concerned, we are more than 12%. And there were some days in Pakistan on some particular day where nuclear contributed to about 1/4 of the total energy production. So that is a good omen, and we have a lot of people, a lot of training that is required for that. We have our own training institutes, we have our own universities which produce our graduates, because you cannot run these nuclear power plants after you have a properly qualified manpower. And that is something which Atomic Commission does by itself, also hires people from the university. So I think we, as far as we are concerned, we are doing good, but we need to do a lot better. And nuclear also need to take care of a lot of other things if it has to come up as the energy supplier of the world, and if it has to contribute to warding off or fighting the climate change, which is an imminent threat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ansar. And now we move on to our next question, which is about the best practices being followed by Russia and Pakistan in peaceful applications of nuclear energy. And can the two countries learn from each other's experience in the peaceful application of nuclear energy? Anton just mentioned in his earlier remarks that there is a possibility of sharing of expertise by accommodating experts in the training institutions, which he mentioned in Russia. We have Pakistan Institute of Engineering and Sciences, which previously used to be called PINSTEC, and that is also meant to provide training on nuclear engineering and all related subjects and safety, security issues and others. I think I can see a possibility of collaboration at the institution level between the similar training institutions in Russia and the Pakistani institutions, and probably that will be a much better way of developing this cooperation in this field in a more sustainable manner. So, would you like to go first, Anton, on this? Sure. Please.
It's much easier to speak after two excellent presentations from Dr. Imtiaz and Dr. Parvez. And I would like to build what they said and what you asked, Dr. Salik. First, if we think about Russia-Pakistani cooperation, people-to-people cooperation, training, education, is one of the areas, and I agree that there should be a legal framework for that cooperation. So from that perspective, of course, research institution to research institution framework or umbrella agreement could be very useful, because we should be also clear this is a sensitive area for cooperation, and from that perspective, all details for such cooperation should be discussed in advance. Next, as I mentioned, there are a number of projects, training and education projects, which are being implemented in Russia in cooperation with IEA. Pakistan is a member of IEA for decades, so there could be some cooperation under auspices of IEA as well. And here I would like to return to what been said with regard so-called non-energy application of nuclear technologies, because I personally believe this is one of the most promising area for cooperation, for example, nuclear medicine. Russia has experience, Pakistan has experience, and probably it would be useful, and the same true with regard, for example, use of nuclear technologies in agriculture. It would be useful to have a menu of projects where two countries or organizations of two countries, experts of two countries are interested to cooperate, and to discuss later what kind of projects are implementable due to legal restrictions, due to other opportunities or sometimes bottlenecks we may have. But I would suggest, I would think we should be more ambitious what could be done with regard cooperation in this particular area, and a kind of menu or roadmap or whatever we can call that could be useful, and such a menu could be prepared even by think tankers, because I'm sure that there are plenty of experts in Pakistan who know well what the needs of the country, and there are, of course, Russia's scholars and experts who understand what kind of experience Russia has. So this kind of brainstorming or thinking could start with just informal exchanges between scholars, and later, of course, it would be up to officials to consider those ideas and to decide whether to proceed with those suggestions and ideas or not. But, and I would like to conclude with that, I do believe there are more space for cooperation in the nuclear-related field, despite of those legal restrictions which exist, because Russia is a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group and Pakistan is not member of NPT. This is first. And second, well, we know, as it was said a few times earlier today, that India was given an energy waiver. Pakistan does not have it, and this is my personal view, but this is for today. And nuclear export control regime are evolving, and we cannot exclude anything in the future.
Thank you. Dr. Ansar, would you like
Yeah,
to add to this?
thank you. I think I fully agree with what Anton just said. There have been many, I would say, feeble attempts at cooperation between Russia and Pakistan with one of our groups in Atomic Commission was trying to set up a small plasma tokamak. You know, this plasma tokamak is just to prove the principle of fusion energy. I don't know how likely fusion energy is, but a lot of research and development is being done. And you also know that in France they are building this ITER facility. And many countries have tokamaks of their own. So Pakistan was also trying to build one small one. Tokamak basically comes from Russia. It was initially their design that the world adopted for development of sustaining of plasma. So we had some Russian experts who came here and helped us in doing that. And also National Center for Physics, with which I'm also associated. They are also having a very strong interaction with some Russian organization. So I think what Anton has just said is very important, that these attempts have been made. There is a desire on both sides to interact with each other, and the benefits, the advantage of this interaction can never be overemphasized, because in this area of technology and science, you can always learn from each other, no matter what the difference between the technology of two states or two individuals is. So I think this is an area where we must invest time. This is an area where we must look into. And of course, it's not possible to have direct assistance in terms of nuclear power. But as Imtiaz also pointed out, and Anton just said, that there are many non-energy applications of nuclear technology. And as I just said, that the world and Pakistan and people, they need this. There's a lot to be done in this area. So I think if some kind of an interaction can take place in developing this applications of nuclear technology for the benefit of people, for the treatment or for the diagnostic, or the application of this technology may be in food preservation, or application of this technology in water resource management, which is going to be a very big challenge for Pakistan and as a matter of for the entire world. So it will help. And I also agree with Anton that maybe of course, at the government level and the official level, these things do keep taking place. But if at the think tank level, somebody were going to put up a paper in consultation with the consultancy that you have and in consultation with the advice that you can have, and then try to build up a plan as to what discrete ideas or products can be put forward. And then, of course, you can have a long list, and then somebody could sit down and see what office is feasible, what is not feasible, what requires how much money can be afforded. And then we can get started one more time and maybe arrive at some more meaningful cooperation.
Ms. Ekaterina, would you like to share your views on this?
Yeah, sure. I guess it's really hard to add something else after what the previous speakers told, but I just wanted to make a couple of points that Russia is indeed now implementing a wide range of concrete projects in peaceful application of nuclear energy. And we have already mentioned the construction of NPPs, but what has not been told is also that Russia is the only country that uses civil nuclear-powered vessels. I'm not sure to what extent it can be, to what extent it is applicable to Russia-Pakistani cooperation, but currently there are 7 nuclear icebreakers in operation and 1 nuclear transport vessel, and there are more icebreakers under construction. Another point that I wanted to make is wind farms. I know that it is not a nuclear power, not connected to peaceful application of nuclear energy, but it's a project that Rosatom is currently implementing. And as far as I know, there are 7 wind farms constructed in Russia. So this is also can be a point of cooperation with Rosatom, which is primarily deals with nuclear power generation. Thank you.
Imtiaz, please.
Yes. The good news is that there is bilateral cooperation between Russia and especially Rosatom and Pakistan Atomic. Thank you very much. Yes, the good news is that there is, of course, cooperation in other uses of nuclear energy. We have, Russia has been able to supply Pakistan with radioisotopes which were banned by the USA. Some of them used in medicine and industry, and we were able to. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. There is good news on the front, and there is cooperation, and there is cooperation between the Rosatom and Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. We have been able to get from Russia some of the isotopes that we required for our industry and for our medical purposes, and also for our radiation services. So Russia has been providing those. Then, of course, Russia has been kind enough to invite us to the Atom Expo. I personally had the privilege of being at one of them. And during those visits, you talk to one another and you come up with agreements and ways of increasing your cooperation. There is, at the international level, because under IAEA, there is a lot of cooperation now because Russian experts have been participating in workshops being held in Pakistan. Lately, because of COVID, there were some of those were held through these electronic means. But Russian experts have participated, and especially in the area of waste management. That is because if nuclear power has to develop, you have to find a way of managing the waste. And Russia has a large experience in that area, in which Pakistan and Russia are now cooperating. Russian experts under our International Atomic Energy Agency programs have been contributing in those workshops, and they are now a regular feature. And we very much appreciate their presence in those forums and their support. And we see a number of other areas in which non-power currently, hopefully, as the global situation changes, I hope that one day we'll be able to cooperate in, because things are changing. So, of course, we can always look forward to a cooperation in power. But besides power, I think there is now, we have been looking to purchase of Lutetium-177 from Russia, which is used for cancer treatments. So there is cooperation. There is an understanding, and it is very nice that we are now open to cooperation from both sides. And the future is, I hope, will be a lot brighter than what we had in the past. So there is a lot to look forward to. And that's my final point.
I think before we move over to the question answer session, I would like to ask all the panelists if they have any final thoughts on whatever subject we have discussed so far. You have the time to add any points you want to before we move on to the question answer session.
I don't have any.
So the House is now open for question answer, and as was mentioned in the previous panel, the rules of the games are the same. Kindly introduce yourself once you are asking a question, and also try to be brief and ask a question which is of relevance to the panel, the subject which the panel was discussing. You will get more opportunities to ask questions on other issues in the subsequent panels. So anybody ready to ask the question? Yes, Mr. Ali Mustafa.
Thank you so much for the insightful session. I have a question for Mr. Anton. You talked about the legal challenges in cooperation between Pakistan and Russia, especially in nuclear energy, based on Pakistan not being an NPT member. My question to you is, what can Pakistan do to make Russia a strong ally in the NSG framework to call for a waiver or a criteria-based approach towards Pakistan's membership and access to nuclear energy? Thank you.
I wish there is a simple answer to your question. I mean, as a joke, well, Pakistan could join NPT and it will resolve many issues as a non-nuclear weapon state, but it's not realistic, we understand that. My personal view, and again, I would like to underline, this is my personal view, to have a non-proliferation regime as a whole, sustainable and more stable, it's better to have less categories, less different categories of countries according to NPT, which means according to the treaty, we have nuclear weapon states, we have non-nuclear weapon states, and originally we also had some states, and still have, which never signed the treaty. In addition to that, DPRK some time ago announced withdrawal, so it's a kind of fourth category. If we will try to split some of those categories further, for example, among those categories, some countries may cooperate on peaceful use with others, some may not. I think it makes the whole system more vulnerable. So from that perspective, I hope that those exceptions which were introduced in the past, hopefully they could become universal in the future for the countries from the same category, according to NPT. I'm trying to be cautious when I use those words, not to name names. But again, this is my personal view. So from that perspective, as I already mentioned, I hope that, well, not I hope, it looks like the export control regimes evolve and nuclear supply practices are facing some changes. Right now, for example, there is serious discussion among experts in the States, in the United States, to supply Saudi Arabia with uranium enrichment plan. It was unthinkable 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Now I do see many very serious, very influential US experts who discuss it in a practical terms. So my point that not rules as of now, but thinking in this area is changing. And I think it could affect those issues which we discuss here. So from that perspective, my theory, where possible, we should try to develop relations. And it should contribute to future opportunities when those legal restrictions which we have could be resolved one way or another. So from that perspective, Pakistan is a member of IAEA. There are plenty of projects of technical cooperation between Pakistan and IAEA and other countries, which is great. And as I mentioned already, I do believe there are a few areas where we can strengthen our cooperation on the current, I would say, international legal basis, and I hope it will contribute to future opportunities. Thank you.
We have a question here in the front row. Dr. Peter Tipishkan. Okay. Dr. Ansar wants to add.
I just want to add a side dish to all of this. I think irrespective of the legal thing, irrespective of all the NSG and NPT and whatever, there is one major role is played by the economics. If you want some changes in these things, you have to develop economically. When the President of the United States came to India to negotiate on this thing in 2005, 100 CEOs of US companies came with him. And if Saudi Arabia is going to get a concession, it is because it's a big economy. There are financial interests involved. So if you make yourself relevant in terms of economics, in terms of being a trade partner, in terms of being useful to the other side, then of course they can also look at these things. Thank you.
Piotr Tobishkanov, MMO Moscow. Thank you so much for great presentations. I have a question connected to the key address by General Kidwai. He mentioned that there is a challenge related to climate change and safety of nuclear energy. And the climate change, of course, creates huge challenges for sustainable development. In your view, is there any opportunity for broadening cooperation between Russia and Pakistan in the area of facing this challenge about climate change, how it affects, what kind of safety risks there are for nuclear installations, bilaterally and probably multilaterally, for instance, using the platform of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Emergency Services dialogue inside this organization. What kind of opportunities we are, or probably you know that previously we had already exchanges on this subject in some kind of official tracks. Thank you so much.
Nick, the question is how the climate change is affecting nuclear, or how nuclear is affecting climate change?
How we can cooperate on climate change and what kind
How
of...
can we mitigate climate change through nuclear cooperation in the nuclear field?
Well, of course, I think it's very obvious because nuclear doesn't emit any greenhouse gases by itself. It does make a difference. But as I said before, in the first place, you must realize that the total greenhouse gases that are affected, that are emitted, only maybe 30 to 40% of that from nuclear power, from power. There are other industrial uses, there are other transport uses of these things which contribute to it. Of course, if you move on to electric cars and then you produce this electricity by resources which do not emit greenhouse gases, that's a different story. But right now, it's only 40%. So it's not that nuclear can bring a change, but of course it's a very, very important factor because it can replace coal. The thing is that people want to build coal nuclear power plants because it's a base load plant. But nuclear can replace coal because it is also a base load plant. What is keeping nuclear from replacing coal is, number one, is very large capital cost. Number two, the apprehension, as I said, of people about nuclear radiation and nuclear accident. Even if we are talking about nuclear power plants and also renewable, being able to make a difference to the climate change and not emit any greenhouse gases, in 2022, last year, coal power plants were added, more coal power plants were added than retired. So the total generation capacity, coal generation capacity at the beginning of 2022 was less, and at the end of 2022 it was more. So the point is that people have to, if I'm an industry, I have to build a power plant, I need a reliable source of energy which I can sell. So for that, I think nuclear still has to go a long way, and one of them, and the most important one of them, especially for countries which can convince their people to build nuclear power plants, is the economics. There are many countries, we know that in the developing world, who just cannot venture into for two major reasons. Number one, they do not have the trained manpower to handle nuclear power plants. Of course, they can do this, and in maybe 3, 4, 5 years they can produce pure, but then the cost is very high. The capital cost is so high that, and then if you take a loan for that and you pay interest on that loan, then of course you'll have to pay that back, which makes the cost very high, the cost of energy very high.
I just wanted to add that, of course, energy production is one of the highest GHG emitters, but the next is agriculture. And if you look at agriculture, you see that if you use different techniques, including nuclear techniques, you can decrease the amount of emissions from the agriculture. That includes a lot from animal, how we can manipulate the feed through nuclear technology so that they emit less GHGs. So the absorption of nutrients from the feed is increased. Then there's the role of nuclear in emission of GHG gases from fields. If you can develop proper seeds through nuclear technology which reduce the emissions, rice is a very big emitter of GHGs. If you can produce a mutation in such a way that CO2 emissions from agriculture are reduced, there will be an effect, because agriculture is a very big thing. If you increase agriculture, you might decrease the emissions of GHG gases, because the requirement of food will increase no matter what. And even if you reduce GHG emissions from energy sources, the emissions of CO2 from agriculture will increase, unless there is something done to reduce the emissions of GHGs from agriculture. And I think the nuclear has a large role to play in that area. Besides, there's the issue of regulator. I think regulatory issues, I just wanted to point out that we can work together. In fact, there is cooperation in regulatory matters with Russia and Pakistan through the IAEA. And I think there is a process, I think there is an MOU to be signed between Rosatom and PNRA for cooperation in the field of nuclear safety through proper regulations. So besides nuclear power, there are so many areas that if we look closely, we can still cooperate and increase this cooperation for mutual benefit. Thank you.
Mr. Anton would also like to add something on this point.
It is not directly to respond to Dr. Tapic's kind of question, to Peter's question, but his question and follow-on discussion provoke me to other thoughts. First, a few times importance of work with public opinion was mentioned, and I think it's critical for nuclear industry, because there are so many rumors and speculations about the nuclear industry, which make the importance of work with public opinion central, especially in those areas where new nuclear power plants are going to be constructed. And I remember my discussion with one of the deputy energy ministers in the country which is going to build nuclear power plant, and when I asked him earlier this year, when I asked him what are the major obstacles for his country to start project, he said, I can give you a personal example. My kids, 2 sons, support nuclear energy and construction of nuclear power plant in our country, but my wife is against that. So I have to work at home first. And I think this is very real. This is very real. This is why when Rosatom nowadays goes abroad and is going to start construction of nuclear power plant, one of the first agreements they signed to establish, I think it is called something like public information center, where local citizens could come and become better informed about the nuclear energy, nuclear industry. And I think this is one of the areas where Russia and Pakistan could cooperate on, because Pakistan has its own experience, Russia has its own experience. And this is about what I would call best practice exchange. This is one point. The second, Dr. Parvez mentioned about the complications which countries face when they are going to build nuclear power plants. I mean, high capital cost, lack of manpower. And here, new technology could help, especially for newcomer states, those who just going to build nuclear power plant. Nowadays, there is a very popular term in English, SMR, small modular reactors. Those who are engaged in the nuclear business hear this acronym quite often. This is about new prospective small modular reactors which has power less than 300 megawatts. Regular nuclear power plants, which, for example, Russia construct nowadays, it's about 1,000 megawatts or even 1,200 megawatts. So it's much smaller nuclear power plants. It is expected that it will take less time than for big ones to produce them, because they would be based on modules, which will be produced, the modules will be produced at the plant, they will be bring and quickly collected. It is expected that they will be, of course, less costly than a big nuclear power plant. They will require less manpower, But what is important, and this is a big question for those reactors as well as for the nuclear industry or nuclear power for the future, in general, how competitive those new reactors will be. Because nowadays there are a few dozens of projects in Russia, in ROK, in US, in Europe, in China, with so-called SMRs. But most of those projects, except a couple of, including the one in Russia, academic Lomonosov, they are on paper. So it's not clear how costly they will be and how competitive those projects are in comparison with renewables, which were mentioned a few times in our discussion. So I will stop here, but I just would like to introduce to our discussion the importance of new technologies in the power application of nuclear industry and so-called small modular reactors.
I believe Dr. Ansar wants to make some comment about SMRs. So
Yes, I
over to
think
you.
Anton has raised 2 points which are very dear to me, very close to my heart. In the first place, people perception of nuclear radiations. When Pakistan tried to build this K2, K3, which are now complete and operating near Karachi, there were a lot of noise. Many civic societies came up, and we even had to go to the court. So I had to go to the court to defend our case along with our lawyers, and I also had to go to talk to public. I had to go to talk to the news people, media people, and I tried to convince them with the help of slides and this and this. And as he just said, my wife, of course, wanted me to succeed in everything. And one day I asked her a couple of questions, and she didn't believe me. So, my point is, yes, my point is that no matter what nuclear people say, this is my experience, and this is also, I think, what I have learned from what is happening in the United States, what is happening in Europe, what is happening elsewhere, where the nuclear people who are so intelligent, so smart, have all the means and communications at their disposal, and they can come up with a number of graphs, pictures, data, and everything, but people don't believe them. If you are a nuclear person, you have interest in nuclear, anything you say about nuclear radiation, nobody is going to believe it. I think one of the suggestions that I once made, and I don't know how practical it is, and maybe here you people can help, just as we have thermometers in our houses, just as we have humidity measurement devices available in the market, we can buy them very cheap. Why don't we have nuclear radiation detectors available in supermarkets and everywhere and every place, and at a very cheap rate? And maybe the nuclear industry, to begin with, can subsidize it. So what makes people afraid of nuclear radiation? I cannot see it. If I'm being bombarded by nuclear radiation in this room, I wouldn't know. Not for another 15 years, not for another 10 years, 20 years, maybe that's what the people believe. But if I have a meter in my house which can tell me what the radiation level is, maybe I'll be more confident that even living next to a nuclear power plant, I don't have any effect. And then, of course, you have to take practical examples. And another thing that can help in this regard is maybe you should invest in people or try to get people like, for example, Bill Gates or Elon Musk. If they say anything about nuclear industry should blow it up as many times as possible. News, radio, media, everything, interviews. So people have faith in them. People think they are smart people. They have the people, men with the ideas, and they would believe them. And as far as the SMRs are concerned, I think 80 SMR designs are being worked at in these days across the globe. And it is said that this will be a small part, small in size, up to 300 megawatt. But very little you can find about the economics of it. I keep coming back to economics, because unless something is economically feasible, no matter how good it is, you cannot preach things into practice. If it will be accepted by people, it will be accepted by countries, accepted by nations, by companies, only if it is economical. If it can help them save money, it can help them make money. SMRs, as presently, I think it is not possible that per megawatt they would be cheaper than the larger nuclear power plant. The economy of scale that was introduced when we built large nuclear power plants, some small nuclear power plants. Initially, we said we want to build a large nuclear power plant because there's an economy of scale. In SMRs, they say there will be economy of number because we will be building like 5, 10, or 15 nuclear power plants, and there will be modular approach. But it's a long way away. If we are going to buy one nuclear power, and if you are going to work on 80 megawatt, 80 different designs, how will you have maybe 1 or 2 SMRs of which you will build multiple copies? So I don't think that SMRs would solve the problem. The problem, as he also pointed out, would be solved only when people begin to accept nuclear as a source of energy which is cheap, which is economical, and which can also fight this climate change. Unless you can convince public across the world, it will not happen. And there is another thing. I mean, Russia is building many power plants, China is building, India is building. But US, only one plant. And it's very, very expensive. Canada, so far, no nuclear power plant during the last 20 years. Europe, very few. Only one in Finland, I think, and that is also a disaster economically. Unless these countries get into it, it will be very difficult that it might be adopted as a way of life. This is my other comment.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome. My name is Muhammad Asim, and I'm just a student. I'm a reader. As far as I read, the emission footprint of Pakistan is less than 1% of the global, number one. And also, you see, we are, as a Pakistan, we are a very responsible nuclear power users. So, and also, the third thing is that we create energy more than the Pakistan needs it. And the problem about use of energy was basically defined as the transmission lines or whatever the mode of transmission is. Can you please? So the question is, we are talking about adding more and more nuclear plants. We are adding about thermal plants and all those things. But nobody's talking about the upgrading of our transmissions. We have not upgraded in probably decades. So how can Russia help us out on that one? That is probably the crux of the problem of any kind of power that we have.
Before our Russian friends answer this question, I just want to make one clarification. I'm not really fully abreast with the current status, but I think that there has been some upgradation in the transmission lines, and maybe Imtiaz can check me on that there has been an improvement in the transmission line. But the problem with having more power plants or less power plants, or having more energy and less energy, is always a chicken and egg problem. If you don't have power plants, if you don't have energy to supply, the industry will not come up. And if the industry comes up and you don't power plant, then it's the same thing. So the thing is, you have to go in coordination, in steps with the proper planning, which unfortunately could not happen. The other thing is that Pakistan does not have more energy than it needs. It does have more power plant capacity than it needs. But the thing is that to run those power plants, we need gas, or we need furnace oil, which has to be imported and which is very expensive. So it is safer, it is economical for the government and for the plant to not operate those plants, rather than buy expensive fuel, operate those plants, and then sell energy at a lower cost. And this is what IMF doing all along, asking us to increase the price, so that the price difference is matched. So I think this is not a simple question of merely having more energy. The thing is, we have capacity, but we cannot have the fuel for that. It's very expensive.
Yeah, we have the capacity. We bought those plants which are useless because they are heavy in expenditures. So basically, whose fault it is? Not the public.
I think let's not get into this discussion here, Asim. I would request, let's not get into this discussion.
I'm talking about.
You have made your point.
The one thing that I can tell you here is that, well, in the first place, I'm worked on nuclear power plants. I wouldn't call myself an energy expert. Lekin all over the world, that includes United States, that includes all the European countries, maybe also include. Energy is a very, very sensitive issue, and it's a very, very difficult issue as to how much investment you are going to make on your power plants, how much of the infrastructure you are going to spend, and will the industry come up to take care of that? For example, in 90s, Pakistan bought many IPPs or allowed many IPPs to start, but the industry did not come. And when this century started, we had so much excess power that Pakistan did not set up hydropower plant because there was so much excess energy already. And then when the population increased, all of a sudden we found out that we are in a load shedding situation because we don't have, and then we built many power plants. But once again, the industry that should have come up to match to use that energy did not come up. So therefore, we are into this cycle. Unless we can do the right planning, and unless we can make sure that these two things act in cohesion, naturally there will be a problem. But this, what all I'm trying to say is that other countries also in our region and all outside our region are also facing the same problem. Would you like to know how much is the price of electricity in Germany, for example, or how much is the price of electricity in the U.S.? What a person is paying in the U.S., वो energy that they come in the same way is by burning the same type of fuel, the same type of power plants. If he pays that much, how can you do in less? So it's not a simple matter. Because ये सारे world पे is spread all over the world, unless you have your own resources. And unfortunately, most of the resources that you can have now are fossil. And fossil, once again, because of climate change, there are issues. So you have to go to hydro. Hydro has its own problems.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think this is a fair question about importance of infrastructure which support the nuclear power plants or big other types of big electricity production sources. And transmission is one of the key elements of that. So when we think about construction of nuclear power plants or efficiency of the whole energy system, it is one of the issues which should be taken into consideration, how much we lose because of the transmission. And here, of course, the efficiency could be increased, but this is, I think, commercially available technology. If there would be an interest in Pakistan to reduce its losses because of the transmission, I can imagine a number of countries, not only from Russia, would be interested to come and participate in the bid to sign this contract. So your question was how Russia could assist. I can imagine that there would be some Russian private companies which will be interested to come and participate in the bid if it will be announced. To be frank, I don't know any examples of Russia-Pakistani cooperation on this particular area, but I'm not an expert on Russia-Pakistani relation, and for sure I can miss anything. But again, when we think about the energy system in general, we should have a look at as a very complex system. We need production facilities, we need transmitting facilities, because the efficiency of the whole system depends on all of those elements. On some of them, more than on others, but you're absolutely right that transmission and how much we lose should be taken into consideration. And there are technologies which could help, and if there are monies, and a country is ready to invest, I think it is proper to do, to improve the efficiency of transmission lines.
Yes, any other question? Yes, Sarmat.
Thank you, sir. My name is Sarmat Zia. My question is addressed to the panel, please. We've seen that Germany has reversed, it's going back from nuclear energy towards other forms of producing clean energy. Japan is also possibly, I'm not really sure if I'm quoting Japan on this, if it's the correct one or not. But with regards to Pakistan, we are on an active seismic zone, and there are chances that there could be a big earthquake in this region as well. What sort of safety measures should we take so as to ensure that if there were to be an accident, if there were to be a natural catastrophe or disaster, what can we do to prevent that? And on your comments on that, please. Thank you.
Actually, there are two questions. First is that Germany is going back. You know why Germany is going back? Because their people don't want nuclear. They are ready to pay high prices. Right now, the price of electricity in Germany is close to 80 or 90 rupees in Pakistani rupees, if you say. But they don't want the cheap nuclear power plant because they cannot convince their people that it is safe. It's very simple. Japan, one accident takes place in Fukushima and they shut down their 44 nuclear power plants. And they shut down, the accident happened because it was a tsunami, and they shut down those nuclear power plants. You were not even close to this tsunami situation. But shut down all of them, all 45 of them, because they could not take the public pressure. So this is the whole point. This is what the nuclear is suffers from. As far as the fact is concerned that Pakistan is on a seismic area, yes, this is true. You know that there's a fault line that goes through entire California from one end to the other. And a major earthquake can take place in California anytime. California, if you count the largest economies, America, China, I think now India, or then 3, 4, 5, number 8 or 9 is California. This is the 8th. California state alone is the is 9th largest economy of the world. So even with the faults, we have to live. But as far as nuclear power plants is concerned, when we build a nuclear power plant, we do a complete seismic analysis of that. What kind of accidents can take place there? What kind of accidents have taken place there over maybe a last 1,000 year or 10,000, as far as it's possible for us to measure. And then we say, okay, this is the maximum amount of acceleration that can result from an acceleration, from an accident. And you know what acceleration means, which means how your building will move because of the force that is being applied because of this earthquake. What kind of acceleration can take place? And then we add a safety factor of many times on that, and then we build our structure and we build our buildings according to that seismic qualification. So if, for example, we are in Karachi and we are in Chashma, if God forbid an accident takes place in those areas, our nuclear power plant will be the safest place to come and take refuge. For example, Canop is also located close to the sea and a tsunami can come. And in 1945, a tsunami came. We went there, well, not we, but some people went there and found out as to what happened. And from the books and data and everything, they found, okay, maybe the wave that came around Canop is 1.5 meter high. And Canop K2, which is built, is 12 meter high. So even if, you know, the entire region of these slabs that are underlying, even if they break, the maximum tsunami that can come is maybe 7 or 8 meters, which includes almost everything, and it's still above that. So you have to live, you have to produce energy, you need energy, because you have light, because lights are on. If there were no energy, there would no light. But then you do all these calculations, and for this you have to pay a lot of price in the design of the power plant and in the construction of the power plant.
Yeah, I would like to add a couple of points. Dr. Parvez made an excellent comments with regards, the safety measures. So I would like also to cover the first part, Germany, Japan, and some other countries. As Dr. Parvez mentioned, in the case of Germany, it's much more about politics rather than on real safety issues, because I should recognize the German performance of operation of nuclear power plant was accident-free. So
Excellent.
they were excellent. Their record was excellent. So it was political decision to close its own nuclear power plants and to compensate that, to start partially buy electricity produced by French nuclear power plants.
Yes.
So this is an irony. This is an irony by the nuclear power plants which are close to German border. Next, with regard Japan, Japan reversed its policy adopted after the Fukushima crisis. According to most recent plans, Japan is going to increase the contribution from nuclear energy significantly by 2030. The plans to resume operation of 17 nuclear power reactors by 2030 30. 2 of them already been restarted this year. As of now, 12 nuclear power reactors are operational in Japan. And again, it's irony that Japan government nowadays use the Russian special military operation in Ukraine and raise of prices for fossil fuel globally to persuade its own population that nuclear is safe. Because they're trying to find a strong argument why Japan is going to resume operation of nuclear power plants. But again, the intentions or plans very ambitious. I don't think they are realistic. I don't think they will be able to resume operation of 15 more nuclear power plants within the next 6 or 7 years. But from my point of view, they will restart operation of number of what is planned, probably not all of them. I should also mention in this list example of Switzerland, because Switzerland also after Fukushima adopted the policy of no new nuclear power plants and close those which were operational when their license are expired. So nowadays, slowly, but Switzerland is reviewing its policy. There is significant support inside country to continue and extend operation of those nuclear power plants which already are available. And even at least at the informal level, there are discussions about possible new nuclear power plants to substitute those which has to be decommissioned because of their age in 20 or 30 years. Because, as we already discussed, to build a new nuclear power plant, it takes a lot of financial investments. It takes nowadays probably at least 10 years from the day when actual planning, practical planning started, and it takes time to train labor force and others. So from that perspective, I would say that probably nowadays Germany is an exception when we think about the countries which change their nuclear policy. What would be the future? I don't know. It's difficult to predict, and I think Dr. Parvez made the central point for the future of nuclear energy, how economical it will be, how competitive it will be, and of course public acceptance is key as well. Thank you.
I think we had a very rich discussion, and we would not like to stand between you and the lunch. So I would like to close the session here now. If some questions are left, you can ask the panelists during lunch, informally. And I would request the panelists to stay on stage for a while to receive their souvenirs. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Salik.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
First, I would request Ms. Ekaterina Poriadina to please come forward and have a souvenir from SVI. Now I would request Dr. Ansar Parvez to please come forward and accept the souvenir on behalf of SVI team. And last but not the least, Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed, former Director General International Affairs at Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, the lunch has been served. Kindly observe the scheduled lunch break and return promptly to ensure the smooth progression of the conference proceedings. We will be back at 3 p.m. sharp with an incredible panel of experts for working session 3 of the day. Thank you. Thank you so much.